You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I'm going to start this show off by doing something that I've never done on this show. It's a very special day in the history of the Jacob Valk Show. I get to make NHL playoff predictions. I didn't do it for the qualifying round because I had nothing to go off of. But I've seen every one of these teams play. I've seen how they've reacted to the pause. And I saw how they played in the qualifying round. So I can make accurate first round predictions. It is important to note, though, that last year, when I did first round predictions, I went 0 for 8. That is true. I literally couldn't have been any worse. I don't know how I went 0 for 8, but I did. So, take these with a grain of salt, but I'm looking at it as I can't do any worse. So, I'm not going to start with the Islanders. Don't worry, I'll do Tuesday's games first. There's no fixed bracket, so this is the best way to do it. I'll start with Blue Jackets Lightning. By the way, it's important to note that from Tuesday to Thursday, all the games are going to follow this scheduling format. The NHL is going to start with a 3 p.m. game, then a 5:30 game, an 8 game, and a 10:30 game. And that's all Eastern time. Then when you move over to Friday, it changes a little bit. It's 2, 3, 6:30, 8, and 10:30. The weekend is obviously different. But without further ado, my Blue Jackets Lightning pick. The Blue Jackets played a great series against the Maple Leafs. They beat a superior Maple Leafs team, similar to what they did last year, in beating a superior Lightning team. Kind of interesting how history repeated itself here, back-to-back years, that the Blue Jackets and Lightning are going at it. And history also repeated itself by having the Blue Jackets beat a superior team in the Maple Leafs. I mean, they shut the Maple Leafs out twice. Who saw that coming? John Tavares had the worst playoff series I've ever seen him have. This is a guy who, when he was with the Islanders, was a really good playoff performer. But he was dreadful in this series. Gave up the turnover that resulted in the Leafs losing Game 3. And Game 5 misses a wide open net that ultimately wouldn't have had much bearing on the game, but still, you've got to put the puck in the net there. That was nice to see. Again, I don't begrudge Tavares for leaving, but it's still nice to see that the Islanders made it further than Tavares in back-to-back years. Like I said, if he wanted to win, he made the wrong decision in going to the Leafs. But back to the Blue Jackets. I've said this before, they don't have that one great player that you can expect to take over a playoff series. Pierre-Luc Dubois had that game once, but you really can't count on him doing that multiple times. I mean, Cam Atkinson has been really, really good, but you can't expect him to take over a playoff series. Same thing with Nick Foligno or Alexander Texier. One thing that's really impressed me about the Blue Jackets is their defense. David Savard, Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, Vladislav Gavrikov, they're all playing really, really well. They've helped out Jonas Korpisalo a lot. And give Korpisalo credit. He gets pulled in Game 3, watches his backup blow a 3-goal lead in the waning minutes of the game. His back is against the wall, and he pitches a shutout. And made a couple really, really tough saves. The Leafs didn't play well in that game at all. They had a really tough time in their own zone. The Blue Jackets did a great job defensively. The Leafs just couldn't break the puck out. As for the Lightning, they've played great since the restart. Vasilevsky has been great. Even without Steven Stamkos, the Lightning are still playing great. They've gotten production from Tyler Johnson, Alex Killorn, Braden Point, and Nikita Kucherov. The big thing here is going to be Victor Hedman. What is he going to be able to do? I mean, if you didn't see it, he was skating past the blue line, and he just tripped. Like, he went down really awkwardly, was really frustrated, was banging his stick against the railing. You've got to be careful with those non-contact injuries. Those are usually the scariest. Hedman, as it stands right now, is day-to-day. Stamkos, God only knows if we're going to see him or not. But if the Lightning are without Hedman for an extended period of time, it changes this whole series. They can't beat the Blue Jackets without Hedman and Stamkos. I mean, even without just Stamkos, they'd have a tough time getting past the Blue Jackets. I think history is going to repeat itself. The Blue Jackets will make it past the Lightning. If Hedman comes back 100%, and maybe we see Stamkos, maybe, I have no idea if we're going to or not, the Lightning can eke out a victory. But as it stands right now, I'm going to say Blue Jackets in 6. Moving on now to Flames Stars. The Flames obviously steamrolled the Jets to get here. I mean, granted, the Jets were shorthanded, but they beat the Jets in convincing fashion. Sean Monahan had a great series, 6 points in 4 games. Milan Lucic had a nice renaissance. That was good to see. He was a point-a-game player. Andrew Mangiapane, I think that's how he pronounces it, was a point-a-game player also. I mean, the Flames got a lot of production from everyone. And Cam Talbot stood on his head. I understand that they were going up against a depleted Jets team, but the Flames were playing great. I understand that going up against a depleted opponent probably made them look better than they actually are, but they were doing something right. Again, they got production up and down the lineup. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see as a Flames fan. They're another team without a true star. A guy who, you know, is going to be able to take over a series. Matthew Tkachuk can do it from the physical side of things. I mean, he's just a pest. He's a gnat. He borders on dirty a little bit, but he's a really, really good hockey player. Same thing with guys like Gaudreau and Lindholm, Mikhail Backlund. They're really good players, but they're not the guys who are going to win playoff series by themselves. It was really nice to see them all clicking at the same time. As for the Stars, they have not played well since the restart. They blow the 2-goal third-period lead to the Golden Knights. They get shut out by the Avalanche. And yeah, they beat the Blues in a shootout, but how great did they really look? Physically, they did nothing. They were 0 for 6 on the power play, and Anton Khudobin started for them. Ben Bishop, in the game that he started, looked absolutely dreadful. That would scare me if I was a Stars fan. I mean, they really only had 2 players show up. Maybe 3, if I'm counting Khudobin. But how much can you count him? He's probably not going to play. The 2 skaters that have shown up are Miro Heiskanen and Joe Pavelski. Look, I like Heiskanen a lot, and Pavelski is still a really good hockey player, even though he's 36 years old. He's nearing the end of the line. He can still contribute. Those aren't the guys who they need contributing. It's got to be Ben. It's got to be Sagan. It's got to be Perry. It's got to be Klingberg. It's got to be Oleksiak. The Stars have not gotten that production. And that would scare me. I'm going to go Flames in 5 here, with the Flames playing great and the Stars playing like garbage. I just don't see how they can really make the Flames work in this series. Rick Bowness has done a solid job with this team, but he has his work cut out for him here. Their bad play from before the pause carried over. That's not good. Moving on now to Hurricanes Bruins. The Hurricanes obviously steamrolled the Rangers to get here. The Rangers played like garbage also, so how properly can you evaluate the Hurricanes? I mean, I can say one thing with confidence. Their young guns do not shy away from the bright lights. I understand that last year they got a taste of it, making it all the way to the conference finals, and look, they got a lot of production from their young guns there. Guys like Sebastian Aho, Jacob Slavin, Toivo Teravainen, and Warren Foegele really stepped up for the Hurricanes, as did Andrei Svechnikov. And this year, they've proven that that was no fluke. They are playoff performers. And you can add Martin Necas to that list also. 2 points in 3 games. He's been playing great. All the guys who I mentioned have been playing great. You can even add Sami Vatanen to that list. The goalies have stood on their head. Mrazek and Reimer, both playing great. I understand garbage opponent in the Rangers, but you still can't take anything away from what the Hurricanes did. They looked great. And when you look at the Bruins, they were the NHL's best team before the pause. And now they've been atrocious. They've only scored 4 goals in round-robin play. And 2 of those goals came from Chris Wagner. All due respect to Wagner. Like him a lot. Liked him on the Islanders. He's not the guy who they need scoring. Tuukka Rask has played really well, but the Bruins have not inspired confidence in me. How can I pick the Bruins? Look, I'll give them a couple games, but, you know, this notion that these teams in round-robin play are going to be able to just flip a switch once they actually play an elimination series and go back to what they did in the regular season, that's nonsense. Alright? It doesn't work like that. You need to build up to that. I'm going to say Hurricanes in 6. Moving on now to Blackhawks, Golden Knights. It was really tough for me to get into the Blackhawks Oilers series. Neither one of those teams played well. The Blackhawks were just a little bit better. I'll give the Blackhawks credit for beating a superior Oilers team. The Oilers were the second best team in the Pacific Division this year, behind just the Golden Knights. And the Blackhawks were the worst team in the Central Division. I think everyone expected the Oilers to steamroll the Blackhawks, but give the Blackhawks credit. Jonathan Taves played great. Dominic Kubalik played great. Oli Mata, Patrick Kane, Kirby Dach, Duncan Keith. They got production from a lot of players. Now, part of that was because the Oilers were just so blasted terrible. But I'll give the Blackhawks credit for persevering. I mean, they still advanced. I can't take that away from them. But their ride is going to end here. The Golden Knights have played really, really well since the restart. Defensively, they've been terrible. It's something that they've been dealing with all year. And Marc-Andre Fleury is not the Marc-Andre Fleury of old. But they've gotten their offense to produce. Guys like Mark Stone, Shea Theodore, Alex Tuck, William Karlsson, and Nicholas Waugh have all played well since the restart. The big question for the Golden Knights is who's going to start in net? Because Robin Lehner has thoroughly outplayed Marc-Andre Fleury. Fleury only started 1 game, got shellacked, allowed 4 goals on 17 shots. Granted, Robin Lehner hasn't been great, but he's been better than Fleury. I understand that's not a high bar to clear, but if you're Pete DeBoer, do you go with the hot hand in Lehner? Or do you go with the proven playoff performer in Fleury? I think I'd start Lehner, and The thing with going up against the Blackhawks is you kind of have the luxury of feeling it out a little bit because you're so much better than them. You've got to be careful with that because you can't underestimate them, but this is a team that, if you make mistakes against them, you can come back from that. The Blackhawks are not world beaters. This isn't those great Blackhawks teams of the 2010s with guys like Brent Seabrook and Patrick Sharp and Dustin Byfuglien. They're a worse team by far. I'm going to say that the Golden Knights are going to sweep the Blackhawks. Moving on now to Wednesday's games, and now I will get to the Islanders. They made me a little nervous in Game 3, but Game 4, they thoroughly outplayed the Panthers, and I wanted them to go up against the Capitals. You look at those other teams, the Lightning, maybe, but they're just so much more talented than the Islanders. That's a tough ask. The Bruins, same thing. I understand they've been playing like garbage, but physically the Islanders can't match up against them. And again, they're just more talented than the Islanders. And the Flyers are probably the hottest team in the NHL right now. It had to be the Capitals. Barry Trotz's old team. A team that has played well since the restart, but hasn't dominated. They went 1-1-1. They've only scored 5 goals. Now, they've only allowed 7. Defensively, they've done what they've needed to do, but offensively, they haven't. That's why I wanted the Islanders to face them. This is a team that they can beat. I mean, in Game 4, the Islanders got production from everyone. Beauvillier, Barzal, Semyon Varlamov stood on his head. It was a beautiful sight. The Islanders have been fantastic since this restart. I understand Game 3, but at the end of the day, you're allowed a couple of mistakes. No one's perfect. Josh Bailey showed up in Game 4. Brock Nelson showed up. J.G. Pageau has been absolutely fantastic. Ryan Pulock hasn't missed a beat. Devon Taves hasn't missed a beat. Adam Pelech has been slow to get back in the swing of things from an offensive perspective, but defensively he's been okay. The Islanders are going to get Johnny Boychuk back at some point, but that's not a big loss to me. I'm okay with Andy Green for the time being. I'd like the Islanders to see their captain produce. Anders Lee has been invisible. He's been a +3, but he hasn't gotten on the score sheet. That scares me a little bit. But they've been able to overcome it. I can't complain at all. They've played great. As for the Capitals, Alex Ovechkin's disappearing act in round-robin play concerns me. He's been invisible. He's had 10 shots. He actually leads the Capitals in shots in round-robin play. But he hasn't gotten on the score sheet at all. For someone who leads all Capitals forwards in ice time, that's inexcusable. And add to that the fact that he's Alexander the Great. This is a beatable Capitals team. Yes, they have Braden Holtby, and Holtby is one of the best goalies in the NHL. And yeah, the Capitals have gotten production from up and down the lineup. I understand that. But they need Ovechkin if they're going to win this series, or any series, for that matter. You know, it's kind of funny. Holtby did not have a good regular season, but he turned it on when the lights were on bright. I still think Holtby's one of the best goalies in the NHL. I stand by that. I'll take him on my team in a heartbeat. I'm going to say Islanders in 7. Holtby is going to have games where he kills the Islanders. And Ovechkin will wake up. He's too talented not to. But I think Barry Trotz's familiarity with his old team is going to be a huge factor in this series. Anders Lee is going to show up also. Barzal woke up in Game 4. This is a team that the Islanders can beat. And I think they will. And I don't want to hear that I'm just some deluded Islanders fan. You can go back on my Twitter. I picked the Penguins last year. I said Penguins in 6. And then I picked the Islanders to beat the Hurricanes, and they got swept. So maybe I should keep picking against them. No, I'm not going to do that. Moving on now to Coyotes Avalanche. The Coyotes Predators series was another tough series to get really into. You know, the Coyotes have exciting players, but how often do you see them? It's just tough to get excited about a team that you never see. Now, having said that, they got their offense humming. They were a defense-first team, but it was the offense that carried them. Darcy Kemper was good, but he wasn't great. It was the offense that carried him. Clayton Keller, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Taylor Hall, and Phil Kessel were all point-a-game players, and Christian Dvorak and Derek Stepan had 3 points in 4 games. The fact that the Coyotes got their offense clicking when they were the third best team defensively in the NHL this year makes them a scary team in the playoffs. And when you look at the Avalanche, they've played great in round-robin play, narrowly beating the Blues, but they still beat them. They were able to shut down the Blues offense, give them credit, and then they destroyed the Stars. They narrowly lost to the Golden Knights. They've been playing really well. There's no question about that. I mean, the biggest question mark for them is in net. How much can you trust either Philip Grubauer or Pavel Francouz? Grubauer is probably going to start, but I don't think he's great. The Avalanche offense needs to keep producing. Nazem Kadri has been great. Mikko Rantanen has been great. Jonas Donskoy has been great. Andrei Burakovsky, Nathan McKinnon, JT Compher, Samuel Girard, Gabriel Landeskog, Ryan Graves, Cale Makar, Vladislav Nemesnikov. They've gotten production from everyone you want them to get production from. Even though this is a tough series to really get into, I think that we're going to get into it as we watch them play. It's good that they're starting out at 5:30, so there's no excuse to not watch them And then Friday, they're the 2 o'clock game. I think this series is going to go 7 games. And I'm going to say that the Avalanche are going to come out on top in a really, really good series. Moving on now to Canadiens Flyers. No one expected the Canadiens to be here, but give them credit. They beat a superior Penguins team. The seminal reason that they won is Carey Price. The hottest goalie in the NHL right now, shutting down a great Penguins offense. The old adage, all you need is a hot goalie in the playoffs and you'll go far, seems to be ringing true here. And the Canadiens are going to be a tough out because of that. Price has been insane. A .947 save percentage and a 1.67 GAA. That's otherworldly. And Price was not great in the regular season. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't the Carey Price of old. You know, it's kind of funny. The Canadiens are a younger team. They're led by guys like Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Nick Suzuki. I mean, those are their flagship guys. But it's really their veterans that carry them. Guys like Tomas Tatar, Philip Danault, Max Domi, and Brendan Gallagher carried them in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, it was guys who you didn't expect. Shea Weber found the fountain of youth. Paul Byron was a point-a-game player. Who saw that coming? He was a +6. Jeff Petrie had 2 game-winning goals. Arturi Lehkonen played great. Yes, the Canadiens didn't play the best hockey ever against the Penguins. They got outshot a lot. But they still beat a superior team. You can't take that away from them. And when you look at the Flyers, if Carey Price is the hottest goalie in the NHL, Carter Hart is the second hottest goalie. In fact, if you wanted to put Hart ahead of Price, I'd listen to you. I disagree with you, but I'd listen to you. Hart shut down 3 fantastic offenses in the Bruins, Capitals, and Lightning, only allowing 1 goal in each game. I mean, it was funny. I saw a graphic. I don't know if it was photoshopped or not, but it was really funny. It said, Carter Hart, the Hart Trophy was named after him 75 years in the past. Everyone knew he was going to be great. It was the ultimate sign of respect or something like that. Make no mistake about it, this is going to be a defense-first series. Old school hockey fans are going to love this series. But the Flyers will get offensive production. Guys like Scott Lawton and Kevin Hayes are going to show up. As are guys like Travis Konechny and Sean Couturier and Jakub Voracek and Claude Giroux. They're just too talented not to show up. You're going to see a lot of 1-0 games or 2-1 games or 2-0 games, something like that. But ultimately, I really don't think the Flyers are going to have too much trouble with the Habs. I'll give Carey Price a game to do Carey Price things, but ultimately, I'm going to say Flyers in 5. The last series is Canucks Blues. The Canucks thoroughly outplayed the Wild in their series. Yeah, they got shut down by Alex Stalock, and everyone really liked the story, but after that, Stalock looked dreadful. The Canucks looked like the far better team, and they are. I mean, there's no way around it. Travis Green is one of the better coaches in the NHL. Jacob Markstrom had a really good series. Quinn Hughes showed up in his first ever playoff series. 6 points in 4 games from a defenseman is absolutely insane. He's going to be one of the NHL's best defensemen for a long time. The Canucks also got production from Bo Horvat, Elias Pettersson, Chris Tanev, Brock Besser, Tanner Pearson, and JT Miller. I mean, everyone who you wanted to produce, if you're a Canucks fan, produced. That's a great sign. Now, the Wild weren't great in that series, but the Canucks still played great. As for the Blues, the defending Stanley Cup champions, they have not played well since the restart. I mean, they've been okay, but they haven't been great. They lost 2 nail-biters. The Avalanche game with 1/10 of a second left, and the Stars game was a shootout loss. The Golden Knights game was the really, really bad game, but the Blues have played well enough to win. They just haven't gotten any offensive production. Their goaltending has been really good. Jordan Binnington played great in Game 1. Game 2, he got shellacked. Then Jake Allen played the third game of round-robin play, and he lost in a shootout. I mean, defensively, the Blues have been okay. I think this series is going to be closer than a lot of people think. I'm going to say Blues in 6. I think the Canucks will make them work, but ultimately, I do think the Blues are going to wake up. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. Sticking with hockey, something that was rumored since they were eliminated from the playoffs is official. Dale Tallon is no longer Panthers GM. That was rumored right after they lost to the Islanders in Game 4. And it is official. I like Tallon a lot. Really, really good drafter. He drafted Alexander Barkov. He drafted Jonathan Huberdeau. He drafted Aaron Ekblad. But it just seems like the Panthers were never able to pick a direction. Are they going to go with their young guns, or are they going to go all in for a Stanley Cup? I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky has not worked out. Brett Connolly was a huge overpay at the time, and Connolly has been okay-ish. He's a solid third liner, but he's just making a lot of money. It's way, way, way too much for him. And Anton Strawman plays the game the right way, but again, he's massively overpaid. The Panthers are going to have a tough time re-signing Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Dadonov because of that. They just don't have a lot of cap space. Also, the expansion draft allowing the Golden Knights to take Jonathan Marchessault so that way they could get Riley Smith off the books. Both of them have turned into really good players for the Golden Knights. And Vincent Trocheck was traded for pennies on the dollar at the trade deadline. I mean, it's, again, the Panthers just haven't been able to pick a direction. Tallon will land on his feet. He is a smart guy. And he's such a good drafter that he will get another opportunity. He just needs to figure out how to properly evaluate veterans. Which is easier than evaluating young guns. It wouldn't surprise me if Tallon latched on as, director of amateur scouting somewhere and waited a little bit to take over as GM again. But I think he'll land on his feet. I really, really do. New York Yankees show later today. Regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show tomorrow. Gonna be talking college football. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that against Sandy Koufax, a foul ball was a moral victory.